Hello, I'm Somi Arian. I'm a tech philosopher and the founder of Impeak. My guest on today's podcast is Amanda Cassatt, the founder and CEO of Serotonin, which is a leading marketing agency and product studio. Amanda is also co-founder and president of Mojito, the first venture to spin out of Serotonin. Most importantly, Amanda has written an awesome book on Web3 marketing, which you should be able to purchase by the time this episode is released, as we did the interview before the book hit the market. This was such an awesome interview that I'm sure you will get a lot out of. So let's dive right in. Amanda, thank you so much for coming in to do this interview today. You also did an excellent session on our platform. That was like one of the best sessions that we've had on anything to do with Web3 marketing. I guess first things first, I wanted to ask you about, do you feel like maybe AI has stolen our thunder in Web3? Do you see what I mean? It used to be that people would talk a lot about Web3, and I see that everybody in Web3 is also talking about AI. I wonder if it's stolen our thunder a little bit. What's the state of Web3 marketing in this market right now?
Well, Somi, thank you so much for having me on, and it was wonderful to do the session with your platform and to get to also talk about my book, which is about to come out on April 4th, Web3 Marketing, first Web3 business book from a major publisher. I personally am super excited about AI. At Serotonin, the firm I started after serving as the chief marketing officer of Consensus and helping bring Ethereum, Consensus, MetaMask, Infura, Truffle, a ton of other products to market. We are actually about to publish a report focused on how marketers can use AI. And these aren't just crypto or Web3 marketers. It's about how people doing PR, people working on content and blog post writing, people working on decks, people creating visual brands and imagery can start to leverage these super powerful tools. And so I actually think it all goes together. It's no surprise to me that many of the same people that are excited about how Web3 is transforming the value underpinnings of our increasingly digital lives, that we're also really excited about having intelligence that we can access and deploy toward tasks that can make our lives better and more efficient. And so I was a really early user of ChatGPT. I was so impressed by the difference between the GPT-3 and the GPT-4 model. We've been using Midjourney and other stable diffusion AI for creating visual imagery for a while now. And I think these things all go hand in hand. I think there's so many cool intersections with blockchain and crypto, even beyond our scope as marketers. For example, one of the biggest problems in DeFi is code audits, and the idea of AI automated code audits to check smart contracts for bugs and to be able to assure a potential user that the code's been audited by these, incredible AI intelligences that are specialized at those functions. I think that could have a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about the book. You said that it's who is the publisher?
Wiley.
Okay, nice.
So it's actually a really funny story. So an acquisitions editor at Wiley reached out to me last spring saying, we're going to acquire a book on Web3 marketing. We came to you first based on your background to write it. But if you don't want to write it, we'll ask someone else. And so I'd spent 7 years since I started getting into Ethereum in 2015, building this brand for myself at the intersection of Web3 and marketing. And I felt that suddenly I either had to write a book about it or someone else was going to come and occupy my lane. And I think it forced my hand in the way that I really needed in order to make my dream of writing a book about my experience actually come to life. I wrote it pretty quickly over the summer. Got a manuscript over to the publisher. I'd been thinking about the same thing for 7 years. And so it really kind of flowed. The first part of the book is historical. It's a history of Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, the origins of Bitcoin, Ethereum, DAOs, DeFi, NFTs, the metaverse, that is non-technical. Anybody who understands the internet can understand that part of the book. And the goal is to really describe that history and describe those tools so that anybody can use them, regardless of whether they're a computer scientist or an engineer or a software developer, because that's the most important thing. And then once those tools are in your toolkit, then it's about the tactics and the history of what's actually worked in the past and what we think is going to work in the future. And so the final third of the book delves into those case studies and makes recommendations about how to think about actually building your own marketing department and how to do marketing in Web3.
Will there be an audio version of the book? Because I'm more of a...
Yes, there'll be a release on Audible and also on Kindle.
And did you read it yourself? Did you narrate it yourself?
I wanted to, but the publishing industry is a funny place. Turns out that the publishers subcontracted the audio to a firm that uses professional readers. They allowed me to help select which reader would read the book, which was fun. It was interesting hearing audio clips from a bunch of folks. Personally, I enjoy audible books, especially when it's the author reading them, but unfortunately I didn't get that opportunity.
That's interesting. I've written a book about the future of work, and I got somebody else to do the audio, partly because I have an accent, and also it's actually very hard. It's very, very time consuming. I tried to do it myself, but you need to be coached properly to do it, and it's very time consuming to do it yourself. But you're right. It's always something else when the author does their own audio, because you have that sense of connection a lot more, especially if somebody that does a lot of public speaking and their voice, and it's kind of weird when you hear somebody else. So
well, I think your accent sounds great, and that you're reading your own book makes a lot of sense because you know kind of what to emphasize.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I found it at the time. I was like super busy, and I found it really hard. I kept trying it, and it just didn't come out really well. So I
Totally.
somebody else. So what was your inspiration behind getting into building a Web3 marketing agency? How is Web3 marketing different, would you say?
When I was building the first Web3 marketing team at Consensus, when I was chief marketing officer, I really thought the best marketing team is a hybrid of full-time staffers and external agencies. And I wasn't able to find any external agency partners that understood Web3. And so I knew that after my time at Consensus was over, I had this opportunity to start a firm to take the best practice that my teammates and I had built from doing a lot of the first token launches, marketing a lot of the first Web3 projects, helping bring to market Ethereum, Consensus, et cetera, to the next generation of L1s, L2s, Web3 utilities, DAOs, DeFi, NFTs. And a lot of those folks came with me to start Serotonin. And a lot of our teammates have been working together now for over 7 years. When I was trying to hire marketers, a lot of them came with these Web2 skill sets that were kind of boring. Managing these big paid campaigns on the various Meta, then Facebook business suites, just managing spend on these big social platforms. And at the time, you actually weren't allowed to use crypto keywords, Ethereum, Bitcoin, crypto, on any paid campaigns. You couldn't put money behind any ad that had any of those words in it. So we were actually stricken and banned from even using those platforms. So the skill sets of most marketers were totally irrelevant to what we were doing. So we had to return to the growth hacker, more creative roots of marketing in order to reinvent it for Web3 because of these artificial bans. And the fun part is we were able to bootstrap the growth of Web3 without paying the piper of Web2. And I realized thinking about this that Web2 marketing is really an arbitrage between the cost of acquiring a customer and the total value that customer is going to provide to the platform over their lifetime customer value. And that arbitrage takes place on these third-party platforms like Google Ads, like the various Meta business suites. And you have to pay these third parties over and over. You get addicted in order to continue spinning the flywheel of growth and getting revenue into your business and retargeting your own audience. And in Web3, what's really different is not only is there less emphasis on using those platforms, it's about building an incentive alignment mechanism, building the holding tank for a community, and then solving the 0 to 1 problem of attracting that early community, plugging them into that incentive system, and then decentralizing control over to them so that they're motivated to continue growing the project themselves. which is a way more sustainable approach to marketing and growth over time than building this giant centralized marketing team and continuing to pay this external piper.
I was going to ask you about how sustainable you think it is. I think that I'm kind of worried a little bit that maybe that sounds good now, but as the space grows, it may not be sustainable. I worry about that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on, when you think of something like Blur, what do you think of their marketing mechanism? Like, is that really sustainable? My worry is a lot of times, because of people's enthusiasm around the token, that it can be gamed, it can be farmed, and you don't know really what degree of those audiences are actually going to stick around.
So what I focus on in my book is that these Web3 tools are tools. They're mechanisms, and different projects are going to use them well to achieve their ends, and some of them are going to use them poorly to achieve their ends, and also different projects' ends are going to be different. And so the idea of launching a token by retroactive distribution, for example, doing something similar to what Blur did, that might either be structured in a way that works for a project to accomplish its goals, or it might not. So you've seen examples of projects launch tokens and not save enough ammo for later, because they might need tokens later in order to continue providing incentives to grow the network. So you've seen projects make that mistake. You've also seen projects make the mistake of waiting too long to launch a token, or not launching a token and not finding that mechanism to drive incentive alignment with their community, and really isolating kind of or alienating Web3 natives by not actually using the Web3 native mechanisms to incentivize people. So both sides of the same coin. I think something like Uniswap did a wonderful job with its retroactive distribution. Something like ENS did a wonderful job. I think Blur, we'll see. It's an interesting product. I think it serves a really interesting demographic that wasn't being served before, which is pro traders of NFTs. Other marketplaces like OpenSea weren't really serving the pro trader use case. And as long as they offer the best product for those users, and as long as those users exist and are actively trading, and that might vary in market conditions, and I think Blur has a fighting chance. But that doesn't mean that there aren't all kinds of projects doing it wrong. An example of a project doing it right, an NFT community, is really World of Women, which is one of our clients and partners. You go into that community, you go inside of their channels, you look at the quality and the nature of engagement and participation, and it's just incredible. You see how that community turns up for their events. You see the tone and the motivation of the people that are participating, and you can tell that that's something that's going to have legs over time. Whereas you go into the community of one of the now defunct NFT collections that had less mission and ideological heft to it, that was really just trying to make a buck. You go in there, everyone's just asking, when's the token going to drop? When are you going to announce something that's going to increase the token price? And it's not a surprise. A lot of those projects went bust.
Tell me a little bit about Mojito. What is Mojito?
Totally. So we started Serotonin in 2020, and we quickly became the largest Web3 marketing firm. And we expanded into Web2 to Web3 business transformation, and we expanded into recruiting. And we were growing really fast. We were making all this cash, and we thought, why don't we reinvest this cash into growing our business faster by creating scalable software products? And we realized that with all of our surface area touching Web3 companies, as well as Web2 businesses and traditional businesses getting into Web3, that we have an unfair advantage being able to identify missing products that folks would use if only they existed. The first one we identified from our work with CAA and Sotheby's was that big brands wanted to sell NFTs and other Web3 digital goods on their own owned websites instead of partnering with third-party marketplaces, which makes total sense. Sotheby's has Sotheby's wines, Sotheby's cars, Sotheby's handbags, and they expect to sell those items on their own website. They don't, push out everything to Amazon. You can buy Chanel on the Chanel website, or you can buy Chanel on a third-party website, but it's not like they've abandoned having their own website. In fact, they put a lot of emphasis on having a beautiful website that they control and a beautiful e-commerce platform. So we built Mojito to solve that problem. It's an API-driven e-commerce infrastructure that allows any kind of brand or creator to sell NFTs on their own site and to control the whole process 360.
Yeah, I can see how that can be super helpful. I also today I interviewed the CEO of Rarible, who are also trying to do something like that, right? Offering some kind of a white label solution for people wanting to have their own marketplace. But what you're talking about is not a marketplace; it's more like an e-commerce, so much more
Exactly.
Web
So
two
it's the back
friendly.
end.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what I think the future is going to be the OpenSeas of the world, maybe the Blurs of the world, kind of being like an Amazon or an eBay. And then you're also going to have the Salesforce of the world. You're going to have the Shopify of the world, things that are back end tooling that enable every single store that sells goods to start selling Web3 goods. And that's where I think we're going. And Mojito has incredible customers already, powering all of Sotheby's. Sotheby's has its whole Web3 platform called Sotheby's Metaverse now, powering CAA and their talent, great partners like the Milwaukee Bucks, powering over 120 million in sales over the platform. It's been just incredible. And so we felt so good about our first spin out. We raised 20 million into it in 2021 from some really great investors, that we decided to do it again. And so we learned once again that there was a product missing in the market, and we built Franklin. And we're just actually about to announce the fundraise into Franklin. Our VP of Finance, Megan Knobb, who's one of the most experienced crypto finance people I've ever met, spun out to become its founder and CEO. And it's hybrid crypto and cash payroll, so that Web3 startups can start paying their teams in crypto from their treasury.
That's really cool. I actually pay some of our members or team members in crypto, and it's a nightmare trying to do
I would
that.
love to introduce you to the Franklin team because it's actually the only and the first tax compliant platform for paying your team in crypto.
Very cool, very cool. Um, how do you see the crypto NFT, especially NFTs, continuing to shape the industries because of the bit of a bad rap that we got during the past, months and past year? It's kind of a shame because it's such an interesting technology. Like, for example, on our platform, we've built this infrastructure where we can simply we're now going to be enabling from 7th of April, where any community can have their own channel, and then they can collaborate with other communities just by adding them from a drop down menu. And this is possible because of the smart contracts, because in our backend, we've added the smart contract of all these communities. So that's why, for example, Real Vision now is using the platform. And for example, they just had World of Women. And all they had to do is just like from a drop down menu, choose World of Women and World of Women Galaxy. And that meant that, and Real Vision. And that meant that that event is now token gated for those two communities, and now they can collaborate and they can do things. They can now have full day workshops, like all sorts of things that they can do. And all of this is possible because of NFTs. It wouldn't be possible without them. So but trying to explain this to creators and to people who are not in Web3, it's just like I get sometimes when I reach out to certain YouTubers, people who are in AI communities, and I want to invite them on the platform. They're like, this is really interesting, but I don't want to be associated with Web3. Basically, Web3 has a marketing problem now, and you're a marketing person. How do we solve that?
Well, I think it's a decentralized movement. And so the idea that any one person can solve it is wrong. However, what we can all do is produce products that are honest and in good faith, and be really clear with our customers about what the risks are using our products, and publish roadmaps for our products that we actually plan to fulfill against, and weed out bad actors in our space. Instead of waiting for regulation to come down or enforcement to come down against companies or projects that are bad, self-policing as a community and calling out when we think that projects are low quality or pursuing bad business ethics. In the early days of the internet too, you saw a lot of scammers You saw a lot of people trying to make a quick buck. And sadly, the early internet earned a bad reputation after the first bubble bust. Pets.com collapses, and you get headlines saying the internet might be a passing trend, or you get major economists saying the internet might have the same impact at the end of the day as the fax machine. And whenever we go through a bust cycle in crypto, that's people's opinion. And then when we go through a boom cycle, everyone's excited again. And so I think it's important for the sanity of people in the space to remember that it is cyclic. It always has been, and it will come back. And that the best thing we can do is offer things that are high quality and self-police our own community. That being said, the use cases that you're talking about are non-correlated with crypto markets. It's just an actual NFT use case that you can gate an event with an NFT and use that to collect really high quality data. And in order to reward people, in order to build community, in order to engage better with your users. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of these non-correlated use cases, and they may or may not brand themselves as being Web3 or NFTs. They may just be, this is a membership card, this is a rewards point system, this is how you access this event, this is how you can claim some value that's being sent to you as a reward.
That's very true. One of the issues right now in Web3 is that it's quite insular, and we've got a bit of an echo chamber. We're not really talking to the outside world, and I don't want to name names, but there are certain communities that I'm part of, that I've been a holder for quite some time, and it's just quite draining when you go into the Discord, the communities, that all everybody's talking about is the floor price and where we are right now. And I worry that we're kind of wasting this great technology, and not really pushing it forward. What do you think could happen if we don't reach out to and educate the rest of the market? Because one of the questions I had, what would you say to people who are in Web2 looking to come into Web3? But to be honest, how many people are really looking to come into Web3? I wonder if that is directly correlated with the price of crypto, and if the price goes up, then more people are wanting to come in, but then that's kind of for the wrong reasons.
Well, so here's what I think happens. I think there will be a wave of activity. There will be price activity. Then there's more investment in Web3 companies. Then there's more hiring by Web3 companies. Then there's more news about Web3. And a combination of those factors reaches professionals that perhaps didn't know about it before and motivates them to get excited about it. And you see value flowing from fiat into crypto, into Bitcoin, into Ethereum, into NFTs, all kinds of other things. But the most interesting long-term store of value and value transfer into crypto is professional skill sets. So we're starting to see more and more professionals get up to speed on Web3, get excited about it. And then when the market pulls back, not all of them, but the plurality of them stay. And so it's like waves that wash up shells on the seashore. And each time there's a wave, we get more shells, more shells, more shells. And those people define their careers around being in Web3. They dig in their heels and they commit a huge portion of the time. And that's going to be what keeps driving Web3 forward. And that was a big motivation for me to write my book, because I think that Web3 isn't accessible to people without technical skill sets. And that's why it can seem scary, it can seem forbidding, but actually our space has so many opportunities for people with all kinds of different skill sets. And what are the chances that the small percentage of marketers, for example, who already are working in Web3 are the best marketers in the business? No, statistically, the chances are that the best of us still aren't in the space. And what's going to drive the space forward is attracting those people to our movement, onboarding them, so we can have more bats at excellent strategies and excellent performance.
100%. One of the ways that I personally see I can contribute to bringing more people into the space is by focusing on creators. I'm like thinking about, with our platform, we're making it easy for Web2 creators to come in as well, and enabling both of the possibilities, and then show them what are some of the things that are possible to do with tokens that they couldn't do otherwise, and and kind of introducing them to that technology as well. When I think about the use cases of tokens for building a business, there are three main ones that come to mind. One is art. Of course, that's got its own problems with the whole conversation around royalties. The other one is there are these PFP projects that you could say they're essentially more like a Kickstarter campaign. So it's like you're basically selling these NFTs to start a business, and then give something back to your audiences or your holders. And then the third one, which I think is very much of a question mark right now, is for creators who need subscription models. They need recurring revenue. First of all, do you agree with what I just said with those three use cases? And am I missing something? And of course, there's the loyalty, right? So loyalty.
Right. Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say membership programs and loyalty or rewards programs are going to be huge.
Yeah.
For example, loyalty or rewards, there are all kinds of GDPR style restrictions on storing personal data that make it a lot easier to have a blockchain based CRM or database of your users that also records all of their past use without necessarily storing any of their identity information. So that can be a huge benefit to companies looking to do something that looks as simple as airline miles, instead of having that stored on servers, which can also be hacked or compromised. So I think we're going to see a ton of that. I think the membership stuff is really cool too, where we get to see things at Serotonin sometimes before they come out because we start working on it. We're going to see some really cool membership stuff launching. And the motive here is, let's say you're a restaurant that wants to start a members program that guarantees you a table, or let's say that you're a hotel that's starting a club, or whatever it is that requires a membership. People are willing to pay more for that membership if it's an NFT, because they're parking the capital rather than consuming the capital, because at least in theory, they could flip out of it if they don't need it anymore by selling it to somebody else. And if I feel that if I buy a membership for $100 and I'll never get that back, maybe I'll be more circumspect about spending the $100. If I know that if I decide I don't like the membership anymore, I can just sell it and get my $100 back, it's a no-brainer to buy it.
Sorry to interrupt. Of course, you don't always get it back. Sometimes you may get a little bit of it back.
Of course, you might be wrong. You might be wrong. It might go down in value. It might go up in value. Totally. But the mentality is that you could, whether it goes up, whether it goes down, whether it stays consistent, that you could resell it much more easily than something that you can't resell, because there exists a secondary liquid market. Like it's there's no real liquid market for reselling some kind of digital membership that exists outside of Web3.
Yeah.
Really frictional. And so I think we're going to see a lot of these rewards programs and a lot of these memberships. And other than that, I think you've covered it. I think, in terms of, I think also the things you described blend a little bit. So if you look at NFT now, for example, then they're a company that we work with. They just sold out their Now Pass, which really demonstrated the enthusiasm their community has for their product. They made over $1 million in 48 hours, 1730 unique wallets bought the pass with a lot of super notable holders. And yes, that revenue will, I'm sure, be used to power the operations of the business. But it wasn't their original fundraising event, right? They'd already raised funds. They'd already built their product, gotten product market fit, already built a community. And so partly for fundraising, partly for subscriptions, partly for access, partly for rewards. And so what they're bringing to market is really a blend of all those use cases. And I think we're going to see a lot of really successful blends, especially when there is a product in question that people want.
That's right. Yeah. So for example, we are looking to potentially have a PFP that will become like a membership of the platform for the first, because the platform membership will be something that's like ongoing, right? Like it will be subscription model. But for the first, say, 5,000 people, or for the first 2,000 people, they will get maybe the lifetime pass, or something that is like, more unique, that they can, like you say, that they can sell if they want, or if they want to keep it, they keep it. But it's a great instrument for building that early adopter community. The challenge that comes with it, we are seeing this now, is that when there is a bull market and the prices go up, people sometimes buy when it's going up because of FOMO, and then when there is a bear market and the prices go down, people feel like they are, that they've lost money. So that's one of the issues that comes with it. I think selling out in a bear market is a good idea. Selling out in a bull market is a difficult one, because then you end up with thousands of holders that maybe feel like they've lost money.
Yeah. So what we always say is, when the market is down, it's like driving a car with a low suspension. You can feel every little rock and every little stick in the road. And it's a great way to get in better touch with the road, get better, more granular feedback from your target market, from your users. And you have an opportunity without that cushioning to achieve better product market fit, such that your product can be optimal for when we go back into the bull market. And so bear markets are the time to get product market fit. Bull markets are the time to scale up selling your product and building your community. The other thing we say a lot is, we talk a lot about the importance of early community. So we compare early community to a spaceship. Aliens arrive, they put down a ladder somewhere on Earth, 20 people, wherever they put down their ladder, get on their spaceship, then the spaceship flies off and they're stuck with those 20 people forever. That's your early community. In the beginning, you have control as a founder over who you invite into your community. And then those people set the tone, and the nature of their engagements is going to make subsequent potential community members decide whether they want to be a part of it or not. And so if it's a face melting bull market and you get a bunch of moon boys up in there who are saying when moon, and who don't care about contributing to the project, who aren't mission or values aligned with the project, then they're going to put off potentially better fit or higher quality contributors that you might want later. So you got to be really careful about who those people are, and building your early community thoughtfully, because once it gets to a certain size, you lose control. It just is what it is.
So final question, what sort of trends do you see coming up in the thing is, this space moves so fast that we could talk about something and like next week something comes on and changes everything. But we've seen a number of trends. There was like free mints, application NFTs, not paying royalties, like there's been all sorts of different trends that has happened. Do you see any kind of major trends coming up in the space right now, like from where you stand? Are there like early signs of interesting things happening that we might need to be aware of?
Yes, totally. And I think that what's going to bring us into the next bull market is a combination of things. There's probably going to be some kind of institutional thing. There was last time. There'll be like with Michael Saylor putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. There'll be some kind of, guerrilla event like the Metacoven $69 million sale of the Beeple NFT, and how that kicked off NFTs. And there will be genuine innovation in Web3, like DeFi, like the innovation around yield farming, liquidity mining, and those variables in common, paired with macro conditions, paired with being in the right spot in the Bitcoin halving cycle, all those things together work together to pull us into the next positive cycle and better market conditions. The innovation part is the most interesting part to me. Because at Serotonin, we have kind of a lightning rod, where oftentimes we're the ones that get hit first by these new innovative projects that are coming to us for help before they launch. And so what we're seeing right now is a bunch of excitement around Web3 social, for example. Social is a non-correlated asset. So it's not going to be correlated with the value of crypto markets. It's the idea that you should be able to own your own reputation and own your own following and have that be portable across all the different social platforms that you're building on. So I had friends that built giant followings on Facebook, for example, 5-6 years ago, millions of followers, and now nobody's on Facebook and they can't convert those audiences. They're trapped. And I think in the near future, creators are only going to be willing to add value to a platform and bring their followers to a platform if their following is going to be portable. And Web3 is the best way to do that. So I see Lens Protocol by Aave working on that, and I see a bunch of other players working on it. And it's a great problem, and it's non-correlated. Another non-correlated thing that I've been seeing a bunch of is real world assets on chain. We're going to see that with real estate. Roofstock did a very cool job selling the first single family home as an NFT. I think that's a game changer. Luxury goods are going on chain. We're going to see NFTs become receipts and certificates of provenance, starting with really beautiful, luxury, high quality goods that already have always historically had certificates of authenticity, but going down to lower price goods because it's so cheap to create an NFT, might as well just use NFTs to replace receipts. And that's another set of non-correlated assets. Then also, we're going to see a lot of these NFT use cases, I think, around membership programs and rewards programs. So if you're buying a pair of sneakers, or if you're buying a latte at Starbucks, which just launched this big Web3 program, you're not going to check the performance of crypto markets the same way that when you're buying, a cup of coffee, you don't check the performance of the dollar against the ruble against the won. You may look at how much money is in your bank account, but it's non-correlated with market conditions. And so I think those programs also foster non-correlated assets. Finally, I think we're going to get some. Actually, two more things. I think L2s are going to be really interesting. We work with Polygon. Excited about a number of other L2 concepts as well, especially as there are more consumer applications that don't require decentralization for every transaction, but that you can rather like settle out. I think that's interesting. And then I'm super fascinated by the Cosmos ecosystem. I think they have a cool idea. Instead of legislating the L1 protocol wars ad infinitum, L1 protocol wars like, are you building on Ethereum versus Solana versus Avalanche? Instead of that, the pioneering this concept that every dApp should have its own chain and should actually be built on its own customized L1 that all share consensus mechanism and cryptographic security. I think that's just a paradigm shift on the way we've thought about building on L1s in the past. And I think it's going to be these paradigmatic shifts and genuine innovation using the substrate of Web3 that takes us into the next market cycle.
100%. I'm very interested in Cosmos actually. I don't know if you are connected with them. I'd love to have them on the pod.
We'd be happy to connect you.
That would be amazing.
There's so much cool stuff going there. We work with Osmosis, for example. Osmosis. Most people who know Cosmos know it as one of the leading DEXs or the leading DEX in the Cosmos ecosystem, but they've actually built a ton more than that. There are a ton of other great projects out there. Kepler. The wallet that's used in the Cosmos ecosystem is really excellent. I really like their interface and how it helps you stake and claim your staking rewards inside the wallet. There's some really cool stuff there.
You also mentioned Lens Protocol. We are integrating with Lens Protocol on our platform, so that because we are building a profile section. So essentially, what we are building is the LinkedIn of the future. That's how we see it.
Super cool.
We want to really disrupt that area, but we are going with content first, not with profile and chat first. Because the reason why we are going with content first is because we are attracting content creators first. So we are focusing on bringing in content creators and communities like Real Vision, like Zen Academy, like Impact Theory, Overpriced JPEGs, and they're all using the platform right now. There's definitely a lot of super interesting things happening, and I just can't wait for the broader market and the wider ecosystem discovering it. I just had the team from Starbucks on the podcast. That's really interesting what they're doing. I think a lot of other communities, other companies are going to see that that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it for a lot of big brands. And I'm very excited about this space. I'm definitely going to get your book on Audible and listen to it. And I'll also get a few of the physical copies to give away to our community. So thank you so much
Fabulous. Well,
being
thank you so much for having me, and so excited that you're going to get to experience the book as well.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with the wonderful Amanda Cassatt. Be sure to pick up a copy of her book, Web3 Marketing, a handbook for the next internet revolution, and give her a follow on Twitter. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it on Apple, Spotify, or any other one of your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to give it a 5-star rating and write a review. The full interviews are also available on my YouTube channel, The Somi Arian Show.